From the Sky News Centre, this is Paul Murray Live.
Thank you, Sherry. Breaking news in Sydney right now is that about 2 hours ago, there was a service that was taking place in a well-known church in Western Sydney. Christ the Good Shepherd is the name of the church. It was being live streamed on YouTube. A member of the congregation has stepped up, walked down the centre aisle, and then has stabbed the parishioner. The footage is being widely circulated on social media. If you've just tuned in, we've just shown it here at Sky News. The expectation and my editorial call at this moment, in charge of this hour, is that we will show it to you again, but we are not going to be showing it over and over again for the most obvious of reasons of distress to that congregation. Now, as a result, in the past 90 minutes or so, police and ambulance officers made their way to the church, and pictures that we've seen from there, I don't know if we have a live image from there now, but if we do, could we take it? There were crowds, presumably a mixture of the parishioners inside the church and then also people who had run toward the church after hearing of this particular attack. Police were reticent to confront the crowd because they had to wait for reinforcements. As best as I understand, that situation now has a significant police presence in front of the church as they try to calm the crowds that are there. This is not live footage, but this is an example of what has been happening. Obviously, it's impossible in situations like this to be able to tell you exactly who is who in front of the screen right now, whether it's people who were inside the church or people who have come out. For the safety of the people who are filming this event, the reason you're going to see a lot of darkness here is there's a spotlight which is on top of most television news cameras. That has not been turned on because that in and of itself in a febrile environment becomes an issue where people may start running towards it. Now, I understand that while there are still a significant number of people at the front of the church, there is a concern a little further up the road at the Liverpool Hospital, and that is where the the leader of the congregation has been taken. A popular figure, a man with a significant social media following. Ben Fordham, of course, has been bringing the information simultaneously on 2GB and on Sky News. He's their breakfast host. Here's the latest that he called in to Sherry just a couple of moments ago.
Liverpool Hospital right now is almost in lockdown, unofficially in lockdown. They're worried about what's going on at the church, which is not too far away, and that's where the people are being taken to. The other thing that's occurring right now is things are so volatile outside this church following the stabbing of Bishop Mari Emmanuel that they've had to deploy capsicum spray on someone outside that church. The police have had to. There's a woman with breathing difficulties there at the moment. There are AMBOs who are doing their best to obviously treat the people who were affected by this incident, but also a little bit reluctant, to be honest, to get outside of their vehicles because it is really volatile and they're concerned about the unknown that's outside at the moment.
Now, I'm just checking the distance between the church and the hospital. That is a 15-minute drive through suburbs like Canley Heights. As you can see there, the location of the church is directly 40 kilometres west of the Westfield Bondi, where so much focus has, of course, been over the past couple of days. And the sooner we know more about what's happening here, we'll turn our attention to some of the consequences that have happened there and the rest of the day's news. But again, 40 kilometres west of Bondi is where the Christ the Good Shepherd church is. We've had a collection of messages which have come in from local community leaders. Those local community leaders are trying to appeal for calm. As I say, at this stage of what I've been able to glean from a mixture of the pictures that we're getting here and what I can see in other trusted news sites is that there are more police there. So the immediate concern may well be what's happening at Liverpool Hospital. Ben suggesting that it could be headed into a lockdown because of potentially people trying to turn up there for the most obvious site, as that's the place where, of course, the leader of the congregation ended up. Now, let's hear from the Deputy Mayor of Fairfield, who again has made that appeal to any and everyone who is listening. If you recognise anyone in any of this footage, please call them, tell them to get away from the situation. No one's going to be helping anything tonight. That'll be done by the doctors.
What we've seen in the video, which is a man in a dark hooded jumper approaches the podium, the lectern, and just proceeds stabbing the bishop multiple times. Then the congregation, the people present at the church, jump up and try to stop him. Apparently there's a few minor injuries as well received by some of the congregants, some of the people. The bishop, I was told, the bishop then got up with his injuries and put his hand on the assailant and started praying.
Now, I should say that, as is always the case, social media will be in one place, and the reason that you trust us to give us the information that is true is that we won't be jumping at what social media is doing. There is speculation and an apparent photograph of the person who is believed to be the attacker. However, that is absolutely unverified. So, again, we won't be showing you the image here. We won't be suggesting what the names are in this situation. But, again, that's just the latest that we've had to hear in this situation. Now, according to the Daily Telegraph and their live breaking reporting here, they say that a man dressed in all black is seen approaching the altar before stabbing the church leader multiple times. This, of course, is Bishop Murray Emanuel. He is a man who rose to some prominence during the COVID lockdown, but is quite a significant leader in that particular area of Sydney. Of course, the vision that you have seen, if you saw this channel just before the program starts, is widely available, and that is because the events were being live streamed. Now, the church immediately stopped that live stream and has tried to scrub it from the places where you would have been able to watch it originally, but for obvious reasons, that footage has been captured, and several stills of that image and of that particular attack have also been widely circulated online. Now, when we know more about this situation, I will pass it on to you. If Ben Fordham or anyone else wants to break in, we'll gladly do so with the latest information that they have. But rather than just try to fill for time and fill for information, that is the latest that we have, is that yet another stabbing in Sydney, this one upon a significant leader of a religious community in Western Sydney, some 40 kilometres away from the site of our focus of the past few days, that of course being Bondi. And again, the more we know from Fairfield, rather than speculate, rather than fill time, we will just simply bring you the information as it comes to hand. In the meantime, after what has been happening in Sydney and the emotions that yet again have been stirred up this evening, the Sydney Opera House has been lit up with a commemorative black ribbon to mark the 6 people whose lives were taken, and taken in the worst possible fashion. We've also heard today from the mother of the man who was responsible for that act of insanity that has taken so many lives. Both her and her husband had apparently lost some touch with their son of recent months. However, the media, of course, have been camped out the front of their house since their address was known late on Saturday. They decided to speak today about their position of understanding the gravity of what their son has done, but equally mourning their son for the most obvious of reasons.
Because this is a parent's absolute nightmare when they have a child with mental illness, that something like this would happen. And my heart goes out to the people our son has hurt. If he was in his right mind, he would be absolutely devastated at what he has done. But he obviously was not in his right mind. He somehow had been triggered into a psychosis, and he'd lost touch with reality. And it's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's difficult for all those poor people that have lost their loved ones.
His father also spoke about the extreme set of emotions that that family is going through. And again, as you know, I will not be using the name of the person that is responsible for these murders, but I needed you to see what the reaction was of those who knew him for the longest time of his life.
Look, I'm sorry, but there's nothing I can do or say that can bring it back to dead.
Okay. Anthony, no one's blaming you, just so you know.
I know that, but I mean,
you know,
he's my son.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, he's my son, and I'm loving a monster. To you, he's a monster. To me, he was a very sick boy. Believe me, he was a very sick boy.
It also now seems that the motive, while still being formally investigated by police, has become rather clear. Again, this is what his father said about why it was. All of the victims were women, with the one exception of the security guard, who was, of course, a Pakistani refugee and was doing his first shift at Bondi on Saturday about why he targeted women.
Do you have any reason to understand why he would have targeted women?
Yes,
Why?
because he wanted a girlfriend and he's got no social skills and he was frustrated out of his brain.
Now, the Police Commissioner, Karen Webb in New South Wales, has also openly made it clear that the randomness of the victims was not random when it came to gender.
Difficult to say, but certainly a line of inquiry that is concerning. I mean, it's obvious to us, and the video evidence does show that, and so it certainly will be a line of inquiry.
Now, I wanted to take this opportunity while emotion is running high about what might be well happening in Fairfield right now, but also on a day when we have literally had conversations about rape and murder. Difficult, uncomfortable, awkward and awful conversations. And understandably, there are many women around the country who are feeling a heightened sense of vulnerability, as we spoke about on last night's program. Women openly admitting to needing to have a slightly wider sense of peripheral vision because, for obvious reasons, they end up becoming the target of people for a collection of different reasons. But I just wanted to say this, again, at a time when there are stories of the most horrible things happening, I would die for the women in my life. I would gladly step in front of any object, any person, any situation, and if I knew that any person had harmed them in a physical, sexual or psychological fashion, I would be the first to be marching towards a police station. I truly believe in my heart of hearts that that is 99% of Australian men. To the ones who break the law, break their families, take people's lives, or take their innocence and their sexual safety, I hope these people receive the full weight of the law upon them. We also need to make sure that we deal with some of the realities around what we can prevent and, sadly, what we can't prevent. We need to have a conversation about the reinstitutionalisation of some people who are a threat to themselves and a threat to others. Now, that is not going to give us the pause or the confidence to say that nothing terrible will ever happen again. Something terrible is happening tonight. But I just want to say, not on the behalf of Australian men, but as an Australian man, I would die for the women in my life, the ones in my family, the ones who are my friends and my colleagues here. Not to mention, if the moment was there, a stranger as well. That is how Australian men truly feel. But we also must recognise how many Australian women feel right now. And again, I want to send strength and love and again reassure you about the people in your life who are there at all times, regardless of whether it is horrific or as normal as it could possibly be. Now, in terms of a current affair this evening, they had a bit more reporting about the person responsible for the Bondi attack and a little more information about what may have been happening in the lead up to the attack. In fact, Simon Boda, their crime reporter, was able to get some information from police about what they've been able to find off the killer's phone in Bondi.
But I've learned today that police, the investigators from Strikes Force Macaulay, have been able to download data from his phone which has indicated that he had a fixation with killings. He also had a fixation with knives.
The storage unit, is that a place where he was sleeping rough, or did police find any evidence there?
Layla, I've been told it's only a metre by a metre, so he wasn't sleeping there. He had belongings there, personal belongings. Somewhat disturbingly, they found a number of notes and drawings. Now, I'm told they're just ramblings.
Now, obviously, more information, it'll be coming to hand about that situation. In fact, the New South Wales Premier has already said he's going to put the best part of $18 million towards a coronial investigation, which hopefully will investigate those mental health issues that I was discussing, as well as the Prime Minister involved in the conversation about whether or not we should create better security in and around public spaces. Obviously, as that all continues to build, we'll update you each and every night. But let's return to the situation right now in Fairfield, because as you can see, the latest news is that police are responding to this stabbing which took place in Fairfield. It took place more than 2 hours ago at the Christ the Good Shepherd Church. Now, this is a place that had become quite famous during the COVID lockdown as a place where many people would try to gather. From time to time, police would, of course, try to move people on because of the rules in and around the time of congregations being able to take place. But the news this evening is that the head of that church, a Bishop Ma Murray Emmanuel, has been stabbed. Now, he has been stabbed by somebody who clearly was in the congregation, was, I would suggest, the best part of half a dozen rows back. That person, who was wearing a black hoodie, black hair, starts to walk towards the bishop and stabs him. Now, we have a statement from the New South Wales Police and also the ambulance service. What you see here is some footage which has been gathered in the past hour or so by network cameraman, I believe, from Channel 9. We have here the statement suggesting, of course, that police are confirming the situation that has taken place in Fairfield. You must forgive me here. I've got... there we go. The police operation is currently underway in Wakeley. It is following reports of a stabbing. Officers attached to the Fairfield City Police Area Command attended to a location on Welcome Street in Wakeley, following reports of a number of people that have been stabbed. Officers arrested a male and he is assisting police with their inquiries. People suffering non-life-threatening injuries are being treated by New South Wales ambulance paramedics. The community is urged to avoid the area. More information will, of course, be provided to us. I apologise for my stumbling here. You are seeing the limits of my eyesight right now, so if my team can hand me as much paper as possible while we're processing thing right now. Let's get Ben Fordham back on the line. He's just sent a message to me saying he's got a bit more information. We'll get to him in a moment or two's time if we can get the phone call in there. The information coming from the ambulance service as well was fairly stark and along the same lines. Again, this is a little more social media footage, and we're doing our best to vet the social media footage to make sure that we don't put the wrong things to air. Now, for a period of time in between the incident and extra police being sent to the area, you can see that there was some sort of a flashpoint that had taken place here. Ben was suggesting again via 2GB and Sky News, as you can see, damage to a police car there, the windshield of the car towards the end of the video. It'll flash up in a moment's time. Keep an eye sort of to the left of this image that you're seeing here. Again, you see something hurled towards a police car, and that's the damage of the police car. Frank Carboni is the Mayor of Fairfield. Frank, I'm sorry these are the circumstances under which we speak, but what do you want to say to the people that are out the front of the church? And we understand some people may well be on their way to Liverpool Hospital as well.
Obviously, we're all praying for the bishop's safe and speedy recovery. We want to make sure that we express our love for him as a community, because many people that come to this city they leave their country behind. They came here running away from violence, and to have this happen in a place of worship in a church, it doesn't matter what church or what place of worship, is just horrendous. And I can only imagine how the parishioners feel. So I understand the anger from the community. I understand there's a lot of emotions, especially with what's happened recently in Bondi, which was a terrible, terrible thing. But I urge my community to please stay calm. The important thing is that the bishop will be okay, and I'm hearing that he's doing well. And that is the most important thing. So please, to all the residents of Fairfield, I know this is a trying time to have this happen in our city. It would be trying times in any city, Paul, if this was to happen. So I just ask for the community to please stay calm and let the police do their work.
Now, Frank, can you tell me about the bishop, about what type of man he is, about how important he is, obviously to his congregation, but to the wider community of Fairfield?
Well, he has a very large following, not just in Fairfield, but across the world. Of course, in Fairfield, in many places, we're actually called where we got the world all in one place, because we have so many faiths. And he's one of the bishops that is followed a lot. He's very loved. He has a lot of loyal followers. And I think what you're seeing now is a lot of the community members who are completely in shock. And that's why you are getting this reaction. Obviously, emotions are playing a part. They hadn't seen this happen on a video, and hadn't seen this happen inside a church. People don't go to a church to see this. Actually, we don't go anywhere to see this, doesn't matter if it's a shopping centre or a church. But to have this happen to a bishop that has a very large amount of following, hundreds of thousands of people that follow him. Obviously, there's a lot of people who are quite angry and quite emotional at the moment, but I urge them to please just stay calm, and the police will do what they have to do.
And again, we're in a situation where people are circulating footage on social media. We can jump off this, guys, which is obviously the footage that we've been seeing here. There's also the unverified footage of the person who is believed to be responsible here. What's your message again to the community if they have any footage, if they have any video about where that should go? Frankly, it should be going to the police and obviously not online.
Yeah, we don't want the footage to actually aggravate the situation, because this is a very emotional situation. Obviously, the community is very upset. Emotionally, they're very distraught to have this happen to their bishop. A bishop in many of these communities is like their leaders. So they have a very strong connection to their faith and to their bishop. So please, if you have any footage, don't put it on social media. Provide it to the police. It's really important right now that we show some leadership and make sure that we're calm in Fairfield, and full well knowing that the police will do their job. We need to make sure that we don't let our emotions get the worst of us, which actually can happen sometimes. So I just urge everybody in the Fairfield community. I know that people are hurting. I understand that why too, but please, let's all be calm and say a prayer for the bishop. That's probably the best way that the bishop would want people to help him right now.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much, Frank. Can we talk again a little bit later in the hour if there's more to discuss with you? I really appreciate it. Also, your Deputy Mayor as well. Certainly we know that the local federal MP, Diley, will be across the situation as well. Now, Evelyn Rae, of course, is part of the Sky News family. She's a former New South Wales police officer. We were planning to have a conversation about Bondi, but as quickly as the news turns, as does the reason to have a conversation. But I want to bring you in again as a former officer here, you're trained on multiple fronts, and a scenario like this where you're responding to one incident, which may end up, of course, being the stabbing incident, but then it turns into another incident that, for whatever reason, a crowd starts to turn on the first responders. We started to hear a little before about the calls for backup and more people being brought in, but I don't know whether that's a TV and movie understanding as opposed to an operational one. What's it like to be an officer in those moments where you're attending for one reason, but you automatically have to defend at the same time?
Look, it's actually quite common. Emotions are always heightened around particularly violent crimes, and particularly with violent crimes against loved ones, against members of, community, especially someone in this sort of context who's quite prominent in that area. So police are very much trained and I guess would come to expect things like this. But I mean, it certainly isn't easy. The first thing that you want to do when you attend something like this is preserve the crime scene as best as possible. The burden of proof in a criminal matter is beyond reasonable doubt. Civil matter, the burden of proof is, based on the balance of probability. So basically what that is in a criminal matter, you need to make sure all the evidence is in place, because if there is any small part of doubt, the whole matter can get thrown out and then justice will ultimately not be served. So the number one thing you want to do is preserve as much evidence as possible, and that can be, canvassing the area for as many witnesses as possible, being able to positively ID anybody who might have witnessed the serious indictable offence. You want to be able to, I guess, lock down the area so that forensics can come in and do various things. This is the ideal world, but when something like this happens, you've also got to weigh up the preserving life of yourself, life of your offsider, and then life of the people around the situation who may have witnessed it. So I guess ultimately police would then have to, shift their attention to the safety of themselves and everyone. And then I guess the evidence, unfortunately, has to almost come second place until the situation can de-escalate. So, it's very normal for police to call what's called a signal 1, which is code for urgent attention, urgent assistance. And I'm guessing the police who attended would have done that. And then as soon as you hear, it's called a double beeper, everyone would have flocked to the area very quickly to assist the responders.
Forgive me, would you get you to sit there, because I'll use you as somebody who has, of course, all this information about the operational side of things, but I just want to park you there for a second, because we've got Ben Fordham on the line. He's simultaneously giving us the breaking news, as he is his home radio station, of course, of 2GB. Joins us on the line. Ben, a little earlier, there seemed to be some concern maybe about Liverpool Hospital and what was happening out the front of the church. The pictures we're seeing here via the Channel 9 cameras seem to suggest that there's been a slight simmer down in front of the church, but what are you knowing?
Yeah, I just thought I'd shed some light, Paul, having watched your coverage, and you see these images of, you know, a group outside this church, obviously angry and frustrated and tempers flaring. I think the reason that that is continuing and that it's been going on for some time is that the people outside the church are of the belief that the offender is inside the church. So that's what they're all saying outside. There are people outside who are screaming and shouting, "Bring him out. Why are you protecting him?" And then there's been a bit of an argument amongst members of the church community about what should be done about this offender. So we were told that the man was taken into custody. I haven't heard anything from New South Wales Police about the whereabouts of the offender, but certainly the belief amongst the people who are outside is that he's been held inside the church by some members of their community who, as you've seen in the footage, which Sky has shown in an edited format tonight, people jumped up to grab this bloke and bring him down. And that's why it's an unfolding situation outside. Paul, they've had about 500 people turning up, you know, every 25 minutes. So it's like, you know, it's building and building and building. And that's why police are trying to calm the situation, get it under control, because I believe that they're trying to move the offender from inside the church to into a police vehicle and to get them out of there. Now, in some other news, Paul, I can tell you that while Liverpool Hospital is the main hospital that's being used, they've also alerted other hospitals, Fairfield, Westmead and Bankstown hospitals in Sydney, that they may be required. The Tactical Operations Group is outside the church at the moment, so they're the serious players when it comes to a riot. 30 people have been capsicum sprayed. At least one police officer has been injured, and as you've reported, there's also been a damaged police vehicle. So I think that's what's going on. Look, the crowd could be wrong. Maybe the crowd's wrong. Maybe the offender was taken away in a police vehicle. But they are of the belief that the offender is still inside the church.
Now, by the look of some of those pictures I was starting to consider whether we were seeing a scenario where this church was in a cul-de-sac. Thankfully, I'm again looking at the maps here, as you would know. We've got Welcome Street on the corner of Box Road, and that's where the church is. So there is an ability for police to at least try to work out which way to come in, if in fact, what you're telling us...
difficult though, because as you've seen in the footage, it's a freestanding building, right? Yeah. So it's like, you know, they've got... It's not like you've got one door in and one door out. They've got to try and contain the whole area, and around there's big open wide spaces, so that allows people to turn up. And I would suggest, Paul, that most people turning up are not turning up there to cause a riot or to clash with police. They're turning up because they've heard the news or seen the footage of Bishop Murray Emanuel being stabbed, and they're turning up to offer support and also to look for answers. And if they're hearing the word that the offender's still inside, well, that's why you've got the mob outside and angry at the moment, and police are the ones who've got to deal with it. But the message to anyone in that part of Sydney is please stay away. We've got members of your congregation who are in trouble, police and AMBOs who are there trying to help. It's not going to assist the situation in any way, having 1,000 or 2,000 people outside that church right now.
Well, you also saw some of that social media footage that part of the confrontation with police resulted in police vehicles being damaged. You said before, 30 people had been pepper sprayed? That gives you an idea of just at that particular flashpoint, but more people equals more problems.
Yeah, and look, there's even a female paramedic who has copped some of that pepper spray, right? So she was out there trying to help people. There's a police officer with lacerations to his head, you know, so it's all happening at once. And, you know, fresh off the back of what happened in Sydney over the weekend, while it's unrelated to this incident, you know, everyone's feeling pretty tense. You know it. You can feel it as you make your way around Sydney off the back of the tragedy in Bondi.
Now, again, no doubt your phone pinging the same way mine is, and I appreciate my friend in this particular community who's passing on some information about who the person is specific, who the person is who's committed it. Here's the photo, here's the information, here's the history. Well, again, none of that verified, which is why you're not going to see it anywhere near the 2GB website, on our air, or even...
No.
Yeah, anyone
and look,
talking about it.
And Paul, you're right, and I heard your comments earlier on that, and, the theories floating around range, everything from the person being an outsider to the person being a member of the congregation, you know what I mean? So when you're getting all these varying things, the main thing at the moment is just let the experts do their thing. It's a tough enough time already, and let's just say a prayer for Bishop Murray Emanuel. We hear that he's okay. We hear that, based on the people who have been injured, it sounds like everyone is going to survive, which is more than can be said than for what happened over the weekend in Bondi. And the offender has been captured in some way, shape or form. It's just a question mark over whether they got him out of there, whether the crowd's right or wrong in their belief that he's inside at the moment. But as I look at the footage that, is being broadcast on Sky News right now, have a look at the numbers of the police officers turning up. Every time the camera turns around, you see more of them coming in. And, of course, everyone's got their phones up. Everyone's trying to record what's going on. The TV news crews are there as well. But they'll be trying to push people back a little bit, convince people to get out of there. In doing that, Paul, and you know that, having covered some of these situations, when people are tense, when emotions are high, it's hard to reason with people, particularly when they are just saying, hey, we're here because our bishop has been stabbed.
Yeah, I remember covering many of them with you side by side, my friend. Thank you, thank you very much, Ben. We'll talk again a bit later, mate. All the best. Thank you for giving us the same info that you're doing on your home station as well, mate. So, of course, 2GB in the morning, all the info along, Ray Hadley after that. Now, I'm not going to show you the video of the exact moment where this has happened, but it has been 30 minutes since we showed you that footage. We wanted to show it once for those that are watching our rolling coverage, but if you've just joined us, this is a still from the image. It is distressing. I warn anyone that this is going to be confronting, but that is the moment where the man made his way towards the bishop, and at that moment he stabbed him. We understand it was in the neck or the upper parts of the shoulder. Now, as Ben just told you, the question is right now whether the person responsible for this. Now, the reason we can show you that footage is because the normal Monday service was being live streamed. Now, for a lot of people, they may not physically be in the church, but you can watch it from home. It's one of the ongoing situations from COVID. People unable to physically be in that one place are able to watch from home, and what they saw from home was in part the footage in and around the video that you are seeing there. Di Lee is the federal MP for Fowler, which takes in this part of Sydney. We've heard from the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor, and of course Di has lived a long life in Fairfield and she represents this part of the community. I have no doubt that your response would be similar to the Mayor's and many others, which is the best thing for locals to be doing is to stay away, Di.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon. Good evening, Paul. Look, this is shocking news, and I think that I've asked, our community, we've just been on the phone, just say, look, praying for the speedy recovery and safe recovery of the bishop. He's a wonderful bishop, and I know Bishop Marmara very well. I've attended his church. It is a church that's in, as you've described, I've just been listening to you. It's in kind of a cul-de-sac, so it's a small church, but it is very well attended, and his congregation just loves him. They love him. And so, I know that everybody is obviously, what just happened over the weekend, this is kind of flowing on to the fear in our community, and I'm asking for calm, and I'm asking for us to pray for the bishop. And I know him, knowing what he's like, he would absolutely want us to remain very peaceful and to pray and to continue to spread the message of peace and love. That's the wonderfulness about this man, and he, so I think he would be very disappointed if people are all angry over this. I know he's a very forgiving man. He loves his community, he loves his congregation, and I know that he would want us to all pray for his recovery, speedy recovery, and that let the police deal with this matter.
Also, we have heard much of the character of the bishop, but also, as Ben Fordham has been updating us. The expectations are that whatever injuries he has suffered, they are not believed to be life-threatening, but obviously we've got our calls into the relevant hospitals to get the latest and further information.
Yep.
You can see the sense of chaos that's been out the front of the church for a while. We're now bearing down on, 2.5 hours since the incident actually took place. Now, I have to say these are not live pictures. We've lost the connection right now to the cameraman. As soon as we have the option to take live pictures, we will. These are a series of pictures that probably were maybe the best part of 30 minutes ago. But Di, again, the role of the bishop in the community, clearly an awful lot of people feeling a great amount of love for this holy man. But again, tell me more about this bloke.
Oh, look, he's part of the Good Samaritan Church in our community. And I know that he's got a huge following on YouTube. And if you Google him, you'll find him. And he's grown his following for the last few years, especially after COVID. And so he's been very... I can't say more than he's such a loving person, and I love being in his presence. And we've attended some of his church services, and especially during Christmas when we give out things to the community. He's full of... I know it sounds kind of, means nothing to many people, but I meet many people, and he's one of the most genuine and authentic, bishop that I know. I mean, there are various Assyrian churches in our community, by the way. He's one of them. There's another, Assyrian church at the east as well. So there are quite a few different bishops for different churches in our area. So he's one of them, just one of the many, one of the few.
All right, Di, thank you very much for the chat. If we need to, we'll reach out to you again a bit later in the night, but obviously a very difficult evening for your community right now, as one of its beloved figures is now in hospital. Again, if you're just joining us, there was an attack on a holy figure of Western Sydney. The bishop, of course, was in charge of a service which was taking place Monday night. What you were seeing here is, again, him actually being taken from the area. Now, the latest information that we have about the bishop at the Christ the Good Shepherd in Wakeley. Wakeley is a suburb, a smaller suburb in and around the area of Fairfield. It is literally 40 kilometres west of the Bondi Junction shopping centre. So for those who don't know Sydney, it is, a world away, while being, of course, in the same street directory. The ABC is reporting as we speak this evening that a man is in custody, believed to be responsible here, and up to 4 people have been injured in the stabbing. New South Wales Ambulance, again quoting the ABC, said that the man in his 50s had been taken to the Liverpool hospital with stab wounds. 3 others had been treated at the scene, including a man in his 30s and 2 others with lacerations to the arm and hand. Now, again, according to the ABC, their information from the New South Wales Police Force is that the injuries are non-life-threatening. The reason we remain in rolling coverage, though, is because of the reaction to the situation. Is the apparent assailant, the apparent person who has committed this crime, are they still inside the church? Now, we're getting plenty of social media images suggesting that is the case. However, the flashpoint that has happened has been people that are loyal to this man of faith trying to get as close to the situation. But if the person believed responsible is still inside, then we are in a situation where, frankly, it's very difficult for the police or ambulance to get in and out. Now, we saw before, and if we can find that footage before of the person being taken out on a stretcher, that there was a corridor for at least someone to come out. Now, we are feverishly working the lines for police to give us the information about whether the assailant is in the building or not. The fact that we don't have that information means that I will assume that he is still in the building, which is why people are still in that situation. We spoke before, again, with the Deputy Mayor of Fairfield, echoing the sentiments of the local federal member and anyone else who is a significant figure in the community to just stay away from this situation because they want to clear it, they want to have it as a crime scene, but if there's any need to remove anyone from that area, they need to remove them, as soon as possible.
What we've seen in the video, which is a man in a dark hooded jumper approaches the podium, the lectern, and just proceeds stabbing the bishop multiple times. Then the congregation, the people present at the church, jump up and try to stop him. Apparently there's a few minor injuries as well received by some of the congregants, some of the people. The bishop, I was told, the bishop then got up with his injuries and put his hand on the assailant and started praying.
Now, the Daily Telegraph has a bit more information about this situation, and they say here that the Telegraph can confirm that the attacker is in police custody, but inside the church. That's their reporting. It's happening right now via the Telegraph's website. I repeat, the Daily Telegraph can confirm the alleged attacker is in police custody inside the church. So if our control room can tell me what's happening when it comes to live pictures coming from the camera, we're sharing camera footage that's happening here from the Nine Network. That's why you're seeing some of this in the past. Now, to, again, re-explain to those that are joining us about why the pictures are a little darker than you would normally expect of a news coverage picture, is often for the health and safety of the person operating the camera, they don't turn on their spotlight. If they did turn on the spotlight, then for whatever reason, you add a camera to a crowd, it can change the behaviour of the crowd. A crowd that, as you can see via these images, which have been making circulation via social media, that police cars were attacked. Now, whether they were, well, the assumption being that they were attacked by people who either wanted police to be out of the way, or because the offender is believed to still be inside the building, they want to get into the building to confront the person who has stabbed Bishop Mari Emmanuel. Now, some of them may have been in the room at the time and been forced out. Some of the people may well, of course, in the extreme majority of people, as our colleague and friend Ben Fordham was saying, they're sort of coming by the 500s every few minutes. There's still a sizable number of people that are in and around that area. Now, the latest that also I can tell you here from the Sydney Morning Herald, I'm just trying to keep across all of the major news services right now to make sure that you have the information that is not social media, but in fact is verified by sources that we trust, and to repay your trust in us, I want to keep the information at what is known, not what is speculated upon, what is known, not what is being swirling around on the internet. And even if what is swirling around on the internet proves to be true in an hour or 2 hours' time, that will not hasten our decision here at Sky News to put anything on the air that has not been confirmed by an authority. Now, the Sydney Morning Herald is suggesting that multiple worshippers are among the multiple people who have been stabbed at the service. Now, the expectation that we have, or understanding, I should say, that we have, is that it is only one person believed to be responsible here. So one person with the church leader and multiple worshippers being injured. Those people, of course, being taken to, among others, Liverpool Hospital. There are other hospitals in and around the area, but that is the belief is that the bishop and many others may well end up being at the Liverpool Hospital right now. About an hour and a bit ago, there was an expectation that the hospital had actually gone into a form of lockdown. That is because, presumably, there was a crowd of people wanting to be close to the bishop who were not allowed entry into the area, so therefore were being turned away. There's only security at a local hospital in Sydney. There's not a standing police guard, so they needed to obviously get greater fortification in those areas as well. Now, Evelyn Rae, again, part of the Sky News family, former police officer in New South Wales, as we stand by for pictures that will help add to the information of what is happening in and around this church. Again, as Ben was suggesting and as others have been reporting, if the offender is inside the church and you've got a few hundred people outside the church, the ability, Evelyn, to make your way through becomes particularly complicated, because if the assailant comes out, well, you don't know if somebody 10, 20 or further metres back is going to throw something. They've already thrown things and busted up police vehicles. So again, it's just a moment of caution. So you're in this scenario where, Evelyn Rae, you're trying to preserve a crime scene. As you mentioned to us before, it is a crime scene. You need all the physical evidence, but you also want to make sure that ironically and perversely, the person who may well be responsible needs to be kept in a safe condition.
Yeah, it's incredibly difficult in this situation because, you know, I think what makes the West best, and, you know, what makes us a first world nation and what separates us from some other places around the world is that we do have an incredible justice system. You know, we brought the law and, you know, one of those tenets of that law is that everybody has a right to trial and that everybody is innocent until proven guilty. And the thing with that is obviously it was live footage. We can see, I have no doubt that a court will also see that, but it's crucial that we uphold those tenets, because if we allow, I guess, any instance where we break those tenets, and the entire legal system is flawed, and that's when you see a lot of injustice. So as much as people want to intervene, and, you know, it's pretty obvious that the man is in fact guilty, you know, you're in this incredible situation. And it is hard for police. I mean, if they bring the perpetrator out, there's a risk of their safety as well as this particular person. And so ultimately what police will have to do is de-escalate the situation, whether that be by force or whether that be via communication, whether they use some of the local members and community sort of assets to do their job, whether that be even the bishop, if he's in a well enough state, whether he could potentially send a message out to people who obviously care greatly about him. Obviously that depends on his medical status and things, but police would be working around the clock trying to figure out the best way to contain, to negotiate, and to de-escalate the situation, because ultimately police don't want to be spending their night there. Police don't, like, we don't enjoy or want to inflict you know, our weapons on people, whether that be capsicum spray, whether that be our batons, whether that be a water cannon, like that's ultimately something we don't want to do. And so if we can get out of this situation without harming anyone in the community, without harming any of our fellow officers, the paramedics who are potentially still there, that's the ultimate goal. But it's going to be a very difficult situation, and I think that the police are probably going to really try to rely on community members to do their best to get people away from the scene so that police can actually do their job.
Now, Evelyn, I will get you just to wait a second here, because we have just verified some footage from inside the church, and this is believed to have happened just after the attack. I'm being told by a control room that it is not distressing. It's obviously very brief there, but you can see the sense of chaos as mostly people coming from the right-hand side of the congregation are jumping up and trying to run towards, obviously, both the bishop and trying to put down the assailant. Now, Evelyn, when you were saying before that it's not a situation where police want to be there any longer than they should, but the reality is that if the way to de-escalate things is to calm it down, is to wait a few more minutes, a couple of hours, then that is well and truly what you'll do, because yes, clearly at this moment, the crowd will be particularly pumped up. 30 minutes later, they start to calm down. At a certain period of time, you'd imagine they start to dissipate. I mean, it's only now, 12 minutes away from 10 o'clock Sydney time. We're still within 3 and a bit hours of when it all happened. So certainly we're not in the place we were at the start of our rolling coverage, let alone this hour's broadcast. But put simply, you wait as long as you have to for things to calm down, don't you?
Yeah, look, I was at the Lint Cafe siege, and I know that's not exactly the same situation, but I mean, that was nearly an entire day, over half a day that was waited to try and contain and negotiate. And so, you know, police will be as patient as they can be if that means lives are saved, if that means injuries are prevented, and if that means justice will actually persevere through the situation. So, you know, in our training, we are always trained first and foremost to contain and negotiate, and that's the first thing that you do before you ever deploy any of your defence tactics. Those are always, majority of the time, a last resort when there's no other option. So I think police at the moment will certainly be looking at the best option to de-escalate You know, most of the people who are there are probably not criminals. They are probably only there, like Ben Fordham said, to, you know, show support, and they're genuinely concerned because, you know, their community leader, their bishop, has been stabbed, and people just want answers. We live in an age where, you know, the world just seems to be on fire at times, and people want answers. So they're probably going there to, I guess, seek those and find those. So I think, you know, it's in everyone's best interest to not have to make unnecessary arrests, not have to unnecessarily deploy defence tactics that could injure civilians. So I think that would probably be what police do. I mean, there are some incredible units within the police who are specifically created for these situations. The Tactical Options Unit, the TOU, this is their bread and butter. I'm sure that they are going to be meeting with the community members, with the police hierarchy, and they're going to be doing their job to figure out how to get out of this, with keeping themselves safe, with allowing the offender to be placed, in police custody in the correct fashion, where they can actually do their jobs and bring justice to the victims through prosecuting him. I guarantee you that, they've got their work cut out for them, but they'll stick at it if it means no one's hurt.
Yeah, thank you very much, Evelyn. Again, if we need to return to you, we will. We're going to remain in rolling coverage until we know fully exactly what the situation is out the front of the church and when things do start to calm down. So we'll remain commercial-free and in total focus of what is happening here. Apologies to those who are expecting a normal version of the late debate. We'll put that aside for tonight. They'll be back again tomorrow night here on Sky News. In the meantime, Mario, we've got in contact with, is a member of this religious community in Western Sydney, and I believe, Mario, are you at the front of the church right now?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, so give me an idea of what you can see to your left and to your right. What can you see right now?
Look, we've got police units on both sides. We have a very distressed community. Their beloved bishop was attacked tonight, as you guys know. And, there's helicopters overhead, police units on both sides. People have been pepper sprayed, but well and truly any agitators, well, not even agitators, people are upset that their beloved bishop was and their frustrations are definitely showing.
Were you in the church at the time, or did you go there as soon as you heard the news?
I was not in the church at the time. I heard about it. I've received over 50, 60 phone calls as a member of this community, and I rushed straight here into helping de-escalate. So
in the time that you got there, did you see what we've been able to see via the pictures here, that the numbers of people that were coming was growing and growing, or have we hit the peak of numbers and people are starting to walk away? Give me an idea about when you first turned up, what you saw.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've definitely hit the peak. People are dispersing. There are priests on the ground calming people down. But mostly people, any major agitators, the footage doesn't lie, you'll see that later on. Mm-hmm. They're well and truly dispersed. Now there's concerned community members now discussing with the priests what to do next.
Do you believe that the agitators were people who were trying to make their way back into the church because the person that we believe responsible, the person that we've all seen on the live footage and in the many replays since, was at that time still inside the church?
I don't know about that specifically. I've seen lots of family members, people who are grieving and concerned about the safety of the priest and the bishop. Nothing. There were tempers and.
Yeah. I'll get you to take a couple of steps if you can, Mario. I'm sorry, your mobile phone is being swamped by everyone else who's on their mobile phone right now, as is the way. Not normally this many phone calls happening in that one part, certainly on a Monday night. So, again, the role of, priests, other figures inside the church, they have played a key role in trying to calm things down?
Yeah, absolutely. It's still going on now. We've successfully de-escalated what was quite a tense situation. and I'm actually in the middle of it right now with police command. So as soon as I get off this phone call, I need to continue what I was doing earlier. But we've seen a great de-escalation just a moment ago, I was speaking to a lady, a professional woman dressed really, really well, not a young male in any shape or form, and she's here just crying out the front of the police line saying that she's here for her faith and that Christians are being persecuted all around the world. The last place we want to see Christians being persecuted is here.
Absolutely. Well, of course, you would know by now that the situation involving the bishop is one that is not life-threatening. He is in hospital right now, so that must be an answer to an awful lot of prayers that have been happening in the past couple of hours.
There's no doubt. There's people at the front of the police line now continuing in prayer. One of the local priests here, Father Daniel, is leading a group in prayer as well.
All right.
It's being de-escalated as we speak.
Thank you very much. Well, Murray, I'll put you back to the people who got in touch with you. No doubt if you can send us a photo or a video of what's happening, just stand there and turn around and take the video for us. We'll be able to see what's happening. Thank you so much to you, Mario, and to our team for keeping across everything that's happening here. As I say, we're not falling into social media speculation. We are only going off the information that is available to our newsroom, verified by our newsroom, reinforced by people that we trust, among others, of course, Ben Fordham, who's at 2GB and giving us information here. Now, I do have a video which I'm going to send over to our news team here to verify, but I assume it is verified because I do trust the person who's sending this to me here. But it is, again, some of that early footage about people chanting for the person believed to be responsible to be brought out. Now, again, why the pictures are the same over and over for you there is that the camera that we have access to were the live pictures that were coming back through Channel 9. We, of course, have our own Sky News resources here, but those images came from a cameraman who was, for his own safety, broadcasting for as long as he could, and then apparently there's a technical issue as to why he can't send any more images right now. Mark Morey is, of course, the crime editor of the Daily Telegraph, and let's get him on here to find out the latest of what he knows. Mark, do you know anything about whether the person believed responsible is still inside the church or not?
I do. I believe police are with him at the moment. Some of the heaviest units and most senior police are now en route. There's also hookups going on quite around. And of course, Police Commissioner Karen Webb is being briefed about what's going on.
So what's your sense about that group of people that are out the front about, for want of a better term, how big a problem they are to what police need to do, which is to get that person out of the church and on their way to a police station?
Well, they are obviously very sensitive that there are parts of the community there that are really people who want to be violent. And, obviously there's most of that congregation are people who don't want to cause trouble. But now that they've been inflamed and emotions are running high, so their first priority will be to try and calm them down so that they can get the person, the alleged attacker, out of there safely and get into some medical treatment as well, and then potentially interview him to see if charges will be laid.
Can you give me an idea about how many units you believe are there and what type of police are on site now?
At the moment, the Tactical Operations Unit, as I said, that is the elite of who are deployed for the most dangerous work. Also, the Raptor Tactical Group, which we know is an anti-bikie unit, and they're also there. Police from all over the city. I know units from as far away as the city have been sent there, as well as nearly every available car in the southwest. But they're also drawing on uniformed police from the city, as well as even the eastern suburbs. So it's literally all hands on deck. They're getting there. There are up to 2,000 people there. So, public safety is a major concern there. So they have to try and get as many police there as they can. They'll have to block off roads. There's all these other considerations. They've got the immediate threat there to people and police at the scene, but there's also the wider community where they have to try and manage traffic and a lot of other logistics that have to go on.
Now, I don't know what information you've been able to glean other than what we've all been able to see with our own eyes here. Look, obviously we don't know what motivation is or these type of things. Are any police feeding information back to you other than what we've been able to see thus far about the stabbing taking place, about a suggestion as to not whom, but maybe a why?
No, not at this stage. It's far too early. They're not going to, start making assumptions, which we saw with Bondi Junction. I think nearly everybody jumped to this very early. I know I was thinking and fearing that it was terror-related and was way off the mark again here. The motivation for this person for the attack, they're not going to say anything until they can thoroughly know what is behind it. So, no, I'm not hearing anything like that. And there is a lot, as you said, swirling around the internet and on social media about what's happened to him or what is going on. But I haven't been able to verify any of those rumours, basically, just social media rumours. Hysteria.
Yeah, and that's the thing where it's really important, and I mean, obviously the majority of people watching us right now will understand why. Social media, you may think, runs at a different pace, it's ahead of everything. Well, it's completely unverified. You don't know what the images are, and we have to remain responsible to be able to say, look, if it takes us half an hour, 2 hours to work out whether we can show something, then we're going to do that, because that's the difference between, again, that wild speculation, which all of us went into and took us to a particular place, if you will. Took us to a particular place a couple of days ago and trying not to go to that place right now. Now, again, Mark, the types of information that maybe you're getting from the crowd or about the crowd. Now, we just had a gentleman by the name of Mario who claimed to be standing in the middle of it. I have no doubt that he's physically there right now, but where he stands, he claims there's been a level of de-escalation. Is that the information that you have, or because we're talking of upwards of 2,000 and we've got the footage here about windshields being, busted up and all the rest of it, that there's still plenty on the fringes here to be worried about?
That's right, and as I said, that's why they'll be deploying around that whole. There won't be just a perimeter. And the problem with these type of events is they sometimes start feeding on each other, and you can get little flares, like a bushfire. You think you've put it out, and then there'll be there'll be a club, or there'll be another group of men there, or agitators that'll clash for no reason. So, at the moment, I very much haven't had an update for 20, 30 minutes. Still trying to find out exactly what's happening, whether that man's out or not. Is what I haven't been able to verify yet.
Well, you're the best in the business. You'll file it for the Telegraph. We'll echo it here, and if we get a chance to talk after, we will and truly will. Thank you, Mark.
Thanks. Bye.
Mark Murray there is the crime editor of the Daily Telegraph. Now, Zara James has just filed a report from Wetherall Park Police Station, which is not too far from the church or from Liverpool Hospital. She just filed this for Channel 9, and courtesy of them, here's the latest.
This is all unfolded at Christ the Good Shepherd Assyrian Church at Wakeley in Sydney's southwest. Footage which was live streamed shows Bishop Murray Emmanuel appear to be stabbed by a man multiple times with an unknown implement as he was giving a sermon. Members of the congregation screaming and running in to help. Paramedics say up to 4 people have been injured. A man in his 50s with multiple stab wounds transported to Liverpool Hospital. A man in his 30s with multiple wounds. A man in his 20s with lacerations to his hand, and a man in his 60s with lacerations to his arm. Now, hundreds of people have gathered outside the church. Multiple streets in the area have been blocked off. Police have been making a human blockade around the entrance to the church. The public riot squad have been called in. We've also seen the police dog squad at the scene with numerous detectives as well. At one point, there was such a large crowd there with tensions running high. Pepper spray was deployed. Paramedics have had to treat up to 30 people at this stage for the pepper spray. We're now also hearing that 2 police officers have been injured in the crowd, 1 injured by pepper spray. There have been a number of ambulance officers called to the scene here. The ambulance officers, some were still inside the church earlier this evening, and some have also been on the street assisting with the people who have been injured. The people who have been injured with the stab wounds victims have non-life-threatening injuries. 2 of them were taken to Liverpool Hospital, which has also been placed into lockdown. Just a short time ago, we've also heard a helicopter, we understand to be a police helicopter nearby as well. There is still a large number of people here in the area. Police are asking for people not to come to the area. The streets are taped off and there are still people who are trying to leave the area as well. It's a very tense scenario here in Wakeley this evening, Natalie.
All right, let's reset things at the top of the hour. It has just gone 10 o'clock in Sydney, where the best part of 4 hours ago, a congregation was meeting in the west of Sydney in a suburb called Wakeley. This is a suburb which is very close to the bigger localised area of Fairfield, when a live stream which was being shown to members of the congregation showed that somebody rose and then stabbed Bishop Mari Emmanuel. You can see that image there. Sky News has made the editorial decision not to show the footage and certainly not to show this image any more than once every 30 minutes. We don't want to show the limited pictures that we have over and over, but that is the moment when the bishop was stabbed and was stabbed in the neck. The bishop has been taken to Liverpool Hospital. We understand that his injuries are not life-threatening. That is him being taken from the church. The church is called the Christ of the Good Shepherd. We understand, however, that the person who police believe is the one responsible for the stabbing, that was seen on that live footage, was seen. You can see there where it was seen live, my apologies, but also that person remains inside the church. Now, that is why there have been as many as up to 2,000 people which have gathered outside of the church. What they are waiting for is for the person who, again, is inside the church. The bishop is out of the church, is not in a life-threatening condition. When we have a medical update about his situation, we will obviously pass that on to you, but we understand it not to be life-threatening. So that is certainly very good news for him and for the community that have responded in the way they have. Many people would like to confront the person who police believe to be the attacker, but that has led to a series of flashpoints between members out the front of the church, a group that our colleague and friend Ben Fordham from 2GB was telling us was adding 500 by 500 at one certain point in time. As Mark Morey has told us from the Daily Telegraph, the numbers are now closer to about 2,000 people. Mario, a gentleman who was inside the crowd or is inside the crowd, says that it has been a significant amount of de-escalation, but clearly not enough because there's an awful lot of police that are there and on hand. In fact, as Mark Morey told you, everyone from the most serious of tactical response units are there, the most heavily armed versions of the police service are there, all the way through to the local and first responding officers. Officers, as you saw in that report from Zara, have apparently also been injured. That was when people were trying to make their way towards the church. Things were being thrown, what looks like cement blocks or something similar, cinder blocks, something pulled out of one of the many gardens in the area. It's a relatively small and simple suburban street with houses, as you can see, across the road, those things then being hurled at police. We also understand there was a potential injury as well to a member of the ambulance service. So again, we're in a scenario here where there is a lot of information on social media that is claiming to show a video of the person who looks similar to that, that has been shown via the stills that we have put up on the air, but we have not verified that to be true. We will not put it on the air until it is verified to be true. We've got plenty of people giving us the latest information that they have to stitch together the picture of what is happening. And the reason we remain in rolling coverage right now is you have a scenario where tension's very high in an important part of Sydney, police in a difficult situation of trying to get on top of that crowd to settle it down, and also the person who believes to be responsible is inside. Now, as you know, you can see there, and whatever footage we can again show you of the front of the church, you can see pretty obviously that there's no way that they can create some sort of makeshift tunnel or anything like that to bring the person out. Instead, no, there is going to be a level of exposure, which automatically means as far as somebody could throw something, then could connect. So we're in a scenario where, while Nobody's having good feelings at all in any way, shape or form for the person believed to be the attacker in this situation, but obviously they need to be kept safe so they can eventually give evidence to police and potentially something before a court. Now, Alexi Dimitriadi joins us now as the New South Wales political editor for the Australian newspaper. My apologies for the mixed pronunciations, but Alexi, let's get to this here. What's the latest that you know about what's happening out the front of this church?
Yeah, thanks for having me on. My colleague Liam Mendez is actually out at the scene filing for us at the Australian. And yeah, it sounds as if from what we hear from Liam and from what we're piecing together here in our Holt Street office at News Corp, the situation is just growing and growing. From an hour ago, the horrific footage that we've now all seen of the Bishop getting attacked, it seems as if the alleged attacker remains in the church. A growing group of people outside, seemingly growing frustrated or angry at the incident and the attack on the very popular, high-profile bishop, and more police trying to quell the tensions in the area there and trying to ensure that this alleged attacker, from what I believe in the latest just coming in here, they can arrest him and safely take him outside that church.
And that is the waiting game that we're in at the moment here, whereas we spoke before with our colleague Evelyn Rae, who's been part of the police force, Mark Morey, your colleague over at the Daily Telegraph, where that is going to be a situation about de-escalation, and if you've got a crowd of up to 2,000 people, is your sense about that tension, because I'm just trying to really ascertain here about whether we're at a moment where things are as tense as they were an hour ago, or whether there has been a little up or a little down. What's your sense about where we sit in terms of the task the police are dealing with?
I think it's a very fluid situation, and Liam, who is in the thick of it, is filing to us, filing video, giving us the latest updates. It does sound as if, and I know Mayor Frank Carbone and I know fellow MP Di Lee, I believe, have both spoken to you today, this evening. There's been huge calls from all the elected representatives of that area, urging calm, urging to allow the police of all different squads there to do their jobs. I know that the other, all the elected MPs at the area, the majority of them are at the scene trying to keep social harmony intact. It does appear to be that perhaps we've seen a fluid situation where more police are gathering there, doing their best to keep the scenes under control. It's one where it seems to be something that could have kicked off, but police, from what I'm understanding from my colleague at the scene there, keeping it as under control as they can do.
Yeah, and as we've been saying for the past few minutes, that is going to be a process that is frankly going to be longer than shorter, because we need to make sure that, again, police have got the benefit of time on their side to essentially wait parts of the crowd up, wait part of them off. And as people have been saying before, it's the different types of people that will sort of come and go from the situation, the ones that will be at the back of the crowd, that go to the front of the crowd in a series of agitations. Thank you so much to you and your colleagues at the Australian. We'll check in again throughout the evening. Again, we are here live on Sky News, special edition of Paul Murray Live. Late Debate will be back tomorrow night in its normal slot, but we're trying to get our eyes, ears and minds around what has taken place in Sydney tonight. Yet another horrific example of somebody using a knife to spread violence, this time upon a holy man, and in a church in Wakeley in Sydney's west. It is 40 kilometres directly west of the Bondi Shopping Centre, for those that don't live in Sydney, to try to orientate where you are. But as you know about the place where you live, if it's a big city, or anyone who's been or lives in Sydney, you know that it's a series of cities within the city, and Fairfield in and of itself is like a Parramatta or Blacktown, Bankstown, a whole bunch of, again, cities within cities. Now, I have a statement that I have just received from the office of the Premier's office tonight, which is the following here from Chris Minns, the New South Wales Premier, that these are disturbing scenes tonight in Wakeley. I've received a briefing from the Commissioner of Police and the New South Wales Health on the situation. My thoughts and prayers are with the victims and first responders who are working to keep us safe. It's important that the community remain calm and continue to listen and act to the directions of police and emergency services. We are a strong community in New South Wales, and it's important that we all stick together, particularly in the face of adversity. A comment there from the Premier of New South Wales. Liam Mendes is with the Australian newspaper. We just spoke to his colleague, but he is now at the scene. Liam, give me an idea about the sense of tension in the situation and how that has ebbed and flowed since you got there.
Yeah, good evening, Paul. Thanks for having me. It's a very high, intense situation right here. Police have just started trying to move a very large crowd. Initial police sources told us that there was a crowd of 2,000 people here. It certainly seems that figure could be correct. There are police armed with riot shields, helmets, batons. Some of them are using them to move this crowd on. There's multiple police cars that have been severely damaged, the windscreens smashed, antennas ripped off. The dog squad are here as well. It's probably calmed down a little bit, just in the last couple of minutes. However, they're... Sorry, I'm just going to watch.
No, you got a lot of people around you, I understand.
And police have also been deploying pepper spray as well.
So, Liam, let me ask you, on top of the information you're giving right now, and I understand that there could be people that are hearing half of it coming out and may well be turning around in your direction, so I appreciate where you might have to stop and start here. But give me an idea, again, about that placement of the police figures that are in, let's effectively say, riot gear, which is what normal people would understand to be helmets and shields. Are they moving to and forward a crowd? Is a crowd moving to and forward them? Or they've just created a static barrier and everyone is, for want of a better term, in their places?
So previously there was a static barrier, and up until 5 minutes ago, the police they essentially went down to one end of the street, formed a line, and then essentially charged. You could hear them almost yelling, and that's how they got the crowd moving. Up until about 5-10 minutes ago, the crowd was static. They were watching. It sounds like that, from what members of the public who are here, they're telling me that they essentially want to get the person who has allegedly stabbed someone tonight.
Yeah, and that's what police are trying to do. And you can hear some people calling a familiar tone for anyone who's been in and around major demonstrations. At the end of those, when they try to move people on, they basically say, move back, as we can hear the sirens in the background as they're trying to now start to move people. Can you give me an idea, and again, of where you are right now? Where are you on Welcome Street, and that movement is starting to move from, say, the corner of Box and Welcome, and we're moving people away from the church down Welcome, or are they being pushed down onto Box Road?
So originally where I was on the corner of Welcome Street and Box Road, and that movement that occurred around 10 minutes ago now, they had started heading towards the Bulls Road. It is. So it's on the corner of Bulls Road and...
Yep, I can see Bulls and Bathurst there. Yeah, Box, okay. Right.
Bulls and Box Road, so it's a roundabout, and there's, dozens of police cars here, dozens of police cars behind us.
Yep.
And this is where police have formed a line, and I think they possibly would have done a similar thing somewhere, along other streets. This church was on the corner of a three-way intersection.
Yeah, and obviously, if my reading of the map is correct, Box Road would be a larger street than Welcome. So the ability to push people back means that the crowd can thin out a little more, as opposed to pushing them, obviously, which they're trying to get them away from the church, but closer to the church or closer down the funnel that is Welcome Street.
Yes, that's correct. And now we've got the police chopper surrounding, circling where we are at the moment. But it seems like things have calmed down a little bit, and police are just holding their line, possibly trying to get a bit of their breath back. because they're just holding this line now, and things seem to have calmed down a bit from where I am.
Yeah, my sense again about these crowd situations, and again trying to move people on, is that there will be little surges. It'll happen every. Sometimes it'll be sort of a couple of times in a minute. Sometimes it'll be every couple of minutes, because they don't want to create a sense of a pattern for people to be pushing back on. But that's what they see there. All right, Liam. Before I let you go, can you just again paint a picture for us? Literally, what can you see directly in front of you? What's to your left? What's to your right? Give me the 360 of where you are right now, so everyone can start to have an idea of what you can see.
So right now the police helicopter is circling around us. It arrived probably 30 minutes ago. There are a big line of police. Some of them appear to be general duties, and then there's a lot of others that are special operations support, where they've got the batons, they've got the sorry, I forgot what they call
No, I understand.
The riot shields, that's what they are. And they're wearing helmets, and they've got a lot more body armour, and they're a bit further to the front. And look, the crowd seems to have, dispersed a fair bit. I'm certainly not seeing the same numbers that we saw a short time ago.
Excellent. All right, Liam, thank you. We've made you a TV reporter, a radio reporter, and filing, of course, for websites and newspapers. That's a modern man. I appreciate it. Liam Mendes there, of course, a reporter on the scene at the front of the church here for the Australian newspaper. Now, if you just turned on, for whatever different reason, the latest information that we are covering right now is a very volatile situation in Western Sydney. Just after 7 o'clock local time, which is now 3 hours and 20 minutes ago, parishioners were gathered for a Monday night service at a church in a suburb called Wakeley. Wakeley is closest to Fairfield. This is the Christ the Good Shepherd church. It is one where the local bishop, of course, has been a significant figure for a long period of time there, and Bishop Mari Emanuel is very well known to, obviously, not just his local parishioners, but a very significant number of people in and around Sydney and around the country. He's got a social media following of about 124,000 people. Now, he was performing the service on the Monday night when a man to his right, to the TV screen left, stood up from about halfway down the church and then made his way towards the bishop. A number of parishioners had been injured and had actually been stabbed. We understand it is only by a single assailant, and that is the person who is on your screen right now. He has stabbed the bishop in the neck. The bishop was then taken through a significant crowd of people who were both inside and then started to appear after seeing what had happened on the live stream. All of this was being live streamed via YouTube, which is why you can see the pictures that you're seeing here and the original pictures of the original incident. He was then taken to Liverpool Hospital, where I understand that he is in a stable condition. He's not in a life-threatening situation. However, we have not received any official word from New South Wales Health, New South Wales Ambulance, or from the church itself. Those are the three sources that we are relying upon to give us information about the health status of people. We will not be relying upon the speculation of social media. Now, the person who is believed responsible for the attack, the person that you could see in that image we showed you a couple of moments ago, the person with dark curly hair and with the black hoodie, that person remains inside the church. Now, as news passed that this event took place, literally hundreds, up to 2,000 people at its peak, have been at the front of the church and at the front of the church demanding that the assailant, that the person responsible for the injury, the person clearly on the footage who stabbed the leader of the congregation, the leader of this church, for that person to be brought out. Now, the crowd, or sections of it, I should be fair, sections of it obviously have no interest in that person receiving medical care. Instead, they would like to confront the person who has assaulted the figure of which they love here, that being the bishop. But what you now have is a scenario where you have still hundreds of people. I'm going to continue to use the figure of somewhere up to 2,000 because that's the numbers that multiple reporters of the multiple sources we've been speaking to all night are telling us are the numbers. They have slightly dropped, so again, I don't know by a couple of hundred or 500, but certainly we're still near a peak, but definitely back from it, that those people are not a crowd that is going to simply separate and allow an ambulance with the potential, with the attacker, to be able to freely move. So that's the problem that police have right now. Now, in the early parts of this situation, the footage that you're seeing right now was some of the reactions that some of the crowd had at the moment to the police creating a physical barrier. Now, the physical barrier was not one of tape and it was not one of bollards, it was one of arm-to-arm officers wearing their normal suburban uniforms. They were not there to attend a riot, they were there to respond to a stabbing, and obviously had no speed, no time, no opportunity to collect extra gear. Several police, obviously, confronted there by that crowd who started throwing items. Now, whether these are items people have brought with them, whether they've pulled them out of somebody's garden, because directly opposite, so imagine if this camera was looking the other way, on the other side of the street, several suburban houses. So this church is on essentially the corner of a main road and a suburban road, and that means that there's a huge area where people have been able to sort of gather around it and cover its areas. Again, you can see the maps here. We're talking here about Box Road and Welcome Street as the specifics. When we were just talking to Liam there before, essentially the crowds are being pushed towards Box, which is the street underneath the church. That is the biggest street to try to push people away. So what police have been doing as the crowd calms, but also understanding that there is still a significant amount of passion inside that crowd, they have slowly been trying to move the edges of the crowd. They've tried to move them out. They basically will do so by standing in a line now with shields and with helmets, put simply the riot gear being there. And those people are able to get in between the crowd and they'll sort of siphon it off section by section until eventually there is that corridor for the ambulance, firstly, to be able to drive up and make it to the church. But the earliest reporting that came, and the earliest reporting came via Ben Fordham on Radio 2GB, and we've been adding to that with a whole series of other news agencies, was that multiple ambulances had arrived at the site before the crowds had started to move in. So whether the multiple parishioners who were stabbed and the bishop who was stabbed, whether they have all taken up all of the available places in the available ambulances that turned up before the crowd, I don't know. We're trying to work this out. We're getting intermittent pictures that are coming back via our colleagues at Channel 9 and their news service, where they've had some issues getting live pictures out. The way that pictures work in the modern era is that you're not talking about good old-fashioned satellite technology. It's a version of something that's connected to things like mobile phones. So it's just as susceptible to mobile phone coverage, which starts to collapse the more people are trying to get access to the phone towers, which obviously are not set up for this many people and this much data flowing around on a Monday night. Now, again, we're getting a few more pieces of information via statements here. There is a police statement which has just been updated by New South Wales Police, and it says right now at 27 minutes past 10 o'clock, some 3.5 hours after the incident took place, police remain at a scene of an alleged stabbing incident at a church in Wakely in Sydney southwest at 7:10 p.m. So as I say, the best part of 3 hours and 17 minutes ago, police were called to Welcome Street, Wakely, following reports of a number of people being stabbed. Officers attached to a Fairfield City Police Area Command, supported by multiple police resources from a number of commands and specialist units, attended. A male was arrested and remains in police custody. Now, this is me interrupting the statement. That remains in police custody means there may well be a pair of handcuffs, there may well be police standing around them, but he's physically still inside the church, which is why we have the situation that we are covering at such great length and specific detail this evening. Again, back to the statement from the New South Wales Police. The injured individuals suffered non-life-threatening injuries. That, of course, includes the bishop. That is important for everyone to be across in the area, that there are non-life-threatening injuries to the bishop and the other people that were in the church. My apologies to any specific member of faith or this particular community if I use terms like church or congregation, and I'm a person who's not up on the details of individual faiths, but we understand the difference between the parishioner, the bishop and the people who are there observing their faith in what we would call a congregation, or the meeting of people. The injured individuals have suffered non-life-threatening injuries and were treated by New South Wales ambulance paramedics before being conveyed to hospital. A large police response is underway and the public is urged to avoid the area. More information will be provided once it becomes available, and we in fact have a little more information for you here. Zara James is standing now out the front of a local police station at Wetherall Park, and this is the latest information which she has filed.
We're just a few streets away and we're still hearing police with sirens rushing to the scene this evening. There's ambulance staging posts around the area, in particular after pepper spray was deployed outside the church. 30 people were impacted by this at the time, a number of them needing medical assistance. A large crowd had gathered outside the church. I could say there would be more than 100 people at that point in time, 200 perhaps. There was quite a lot of people. The traffic in the area was completely backed up with cars still trying to get in. The public riot squad arriving there along with the dog squad as well. Police making a human blockade of themselves around the entrance to the church. We understand that the offender was still inside the church and it had been a difficult task for paramedics to be able to get him out. He is now being removed from the church, we understand is on the way to hospital. Now, this all unfolded at Christ the Good Shepherd Assyrian Church in Sydney's southwest around 7 o'clock this evening after footage was live streamed showing Bishop Murray Emmanuel appearing to be stabbed by a man multiple times with an unknown implement. Members of the congregation running, screaming to help him. Paramedics say up to 4 people have been injured in this. Some of them have been taken to hospitals. They have non-life-threatening injuries. But since then, hundreds of people gathered outside the church. Extremely tense situations there. The roads had been blocked off. A police helicopter right now is above us at this point in time. It is still very much a developing situation.
Excellent reporting from Zara there with the information that is latest to her at Wetherall Park Police Station. Again, a situation where the police are doing their best to create the corridor, and as soon as we know more on that, we will. The reporting that we've been able to ascertain from a lot of different areas is that we're in this standoff scenario right now. Again, Evelyn Rae is a former member of the police force in New South Wales. She's part of the Sky News family. You can see her on programs like the Sunday Showdown, and she has got some incredible insights into just what it is like to be in a situation like this. Evelyn, you've been sitting back and hearing much of the information that has been coming to hand about the size of the crowd and about the disbursement of the crowd. Was I correct when I was talking about the tactics about trying to divide the crowd up, move them apart, and how you move a crowd apart? How do you crack apart a crowd of 2,000 people?
There's all different techniques and methodologies that can be deployed for crowd management and things like that. But I think that, you know, the number one thing is that police like move in unity together. And yeah, like I think one of the reporters said, it looked like they almost funneled them into a wider space so that the crowd does disperse. And it tends to be like when a few people move on, it tends to get catchy and a lot of people move on. The psychology of a crowd is a very fascinating thing. There's actually a great book that you can read about that in particular, but those sorts of things about the psychology of crowds really comes in handy when it comes to police being trained with how to deal with them. I think the difficult part now that police are going to have is what hospital to actually take the offender to, because are they essentially going to be bringing the problem to yet another hospital? So I'm guessing that they're going to be working around the clock trying to think of contingency plans about where to take this particular person, because this offender will have to be have a full, clear medical sort of scan, make sure he's able to go back to a police station where he can obviously be charged for the crimes. So that's the next hurdle I think the police will have to deal with. And obviously, now that it's sort of common knowledge that he's no longer in the church, hopefully that there will be more movement. Hopefully, more of the community will go home, will sleep on it, deal with it in the morning, pray from their bedrooms, and things like that. But yeah, we should see a little bit more movement, I'm guessing, now that he's no longer there. But I think the police have still got a little bit more work to do in terms of keeping other areas and communities safe, depending on where they take the offender.
Yeah, this is the key piece of information. Again, Channel 9 bringing it to us. And again, we have no reason to distrust their information, but we're just double checking, as it appears in other places, that when he's out, then again, the reason for the confrontation easily moves away, but the message moving through, some people for a whole bunch of reasons may not believe information that's coming their way for a whole bunch of reasons. And that's also a key part of talking about the bishop and some of the things that he's had to say. He came to some prominence during the COVID lockdowns. This particular church had become a focus of gatherings, of course, ruled to be illegal at the time, but they did their best to meet. Now, Bishop Murray Emmanuel, here's an example of the type of holy man that he is. Have a listen to this man of God.
Let us come together, put our hands together, and make our Lord and Saviour Jesus Christ happy in reaching out to someone in need out there in this world. God bless you. The Lord Jesus be with you. He is the way, the truth, and the life.
Now, you can see there the obvious connection to faith that he has, the obvious and deep connection that would be there to his followers. But also, Evelyn, there was an online element to his support and his strength, about 124,000 people following him in all certain forms of social media. Again, as the word now starts to get out that the person that is believed to be responsible is on their way to now being charged, naturally the crowd should disperse, but it's an extraordinary example of how the police were able to make their way through a certain level of chaos. About an hour ago, we were dealing with a different situation than we were now, certainly 2 hours ago as well. But as that word starts to move, we hope that people will, of course, heed the message and, as you say, pray from home. Also good to know, of course, that the bishop is in a non-life-threatening situation here. So it's deeply painful, difficult, emotional for somebody of such standing to be injured, to be attacked in the way that they were. But if they know that he's going to be safe in hospital, then, as you say, they'll be able to start to move and make their way home.
That's, of course, what we hope for. I think the only problem that we have with today's day and age is there's such a mistrust of information. I think there's been a lot of fractures with trust, even with law enforcement and the general public, especially after the last few years during COVID. I think that relationship was fractured. So I think the only complications in terms of that information is whether people trust it or not. But I think, it's important to remember that being there at this point in time, it isn't going to help the bishop. It's not going to help the situation. And hopefully common sense kicks in. And I guess, I think that if the bishop was here, he would be giving a very similar message in that, peace and, preserving life and also, looking out and loving our neighbour is the number one sort of thing that we should be doing. And perhaps if he isn't in such a life-threatening situation, he might be able to say a message of a similar nature. Yeah,
forgive me, Evelyn. What we can see here are live pictures. You saw there a police vehicle and what would be known as a paddy wagon making their way out from the church for obvious reasons. The reporting, and now you've seen with your own eyes, is that the man who is believed to be responsible for this crime has now been taken out of the church with him, a police escort. Now, I'm not going to speculate about to whether he needs to go to hospital as a result of the injuries that may well have taken place as part of shuffles or anything else, or whether he goes straight to a police station. But the good news is that he is out of the church, and those live pictures coming to us via, again, the cameras of Channel 9, showing us from the suburb of... Oh, sorry, my apologies. These are Sky News pictures, so thank you for the local crew getting to us and feeding back home. Well, as you can see there, that once the vehicle starts to move, which it has, with the assailant inside it, and the crowd now, and if we can again get a message to the cameraman, who I think is naturally going to pan back and forth for us to give us an idea about where crowds are, but essentially everyone now has been pushed back from the church. I believe that, yes, thank you. There we go. Cameraman having a look for us. He can hear what I'm saying here, so I appreciate as we look around there that is on Box Road right now. So clearly, police were able to push people from out the front, to push them down the street and then across the road to a park. That is where what was left of the crowd ended up. You then have a scenario where once the vehicle has made its way through, that traffic is resuming in the area, as you can see with your own eyes. People will not be allowed to walk back towards the church. Instead, with that long line of police, I would imagine for quite a few more minutes, probably the best part of an hour, to make sure people move through. Pol Air, once it was able to get up and over the top, is able to work out where the crowd flows and where the number of people go. And again, the ingenious nature of policing, when you're dealing with a situation in real time that could become very complicated for a longer period of time, what ends up happening is that they work out how to, for want of a better term, surgically separate the crowd into certain areas. Some will be pushed through. Let's see if we can get some audio out of this too. We're not going to be able to hear confrontations, but just in case there's anything else that's happening in the area. Now, clearly, there's one person who seems to have been singled out from the crowd. One would assume that they are about to have specific conversations with police because, of course, there were earlier events earlier in the day. Now, interestingly, as these officers move back and forth, they're doing it on their own time, not doing it under what lights are trying to do, but clearly anyone trying to turn left from Box Road onto Welcome is not going to be able to do so. They're not going to be able to get near the church. Pol Air is able to give them the full vision of where the now dispersed crowd starts to go, because we want to make sure that the flashpoint of the evening is behind us. Clearly the worst of the evening is behind us, which is the situation that, of course, began the whole moment, and that, of course, was the stabbing of the bishop. So good to see that the crowds have been dispersed. They've been dealt with as well. The police, I've been told, are actually helping some people across the road. So my apologies to anyone for any suggestion otherwise. Just trying to talk to the pictures that we have before you. So rather than me speculate on what we can see, we will only talk about what we know, which is the best way to do things here, as people are moving from one side of the street to the other. So what has happened, of course, in the past in Sydney, and it did happen a long time ago, and certainly nobody wants to believe that this is what's about to happen in the next hour or so, but we do have scenarios where the nucleus of something will start in one part of town, it will move somewhere else. I think part of the reason why maybe we haven't got specific information about which hospitals and which police stations and all the rest of that is, again, to try to keep things as vague as possible. Now, no doubt social media does its own business and makes plenty of other noise back and forth about who is around and where people may be going. But it seems like, obviously, we're on the beginnings of the back end of this situation here. If we know more, we will, of course, tell you, we will show you, but we're going to stay in the live pictures because it is good to be able to see rather than just to try to interpret. But my thanks to everyone who's helped us throughout the evening trying to work out exactly what has happened, all after at the Christ the Good Shepherd Church in Wakeley, which is in Fairfield in Sydney, where a bishop, a holy man of Mar Moriarty, he of course was stabbed earlier tonight by a, now I believe we have a local reporter, Leith Mulligan, of course, a legend of the news business, and he's now at Sky News. Leith, what can you see, mate?
Yeah, g'day, Paul. It's a bit of a standoff, actually, at the moment. Here you can see the heavily guarded sort of police here with a full sort of riot gear. A few of the local officers as well on one side of the road. Then if you come across to the other side of the road, you've still got the crowd here that is sort of milling here. But yeah, a bit of a standoff. As you've reported earlier, it has quelled a bit. There's not as much as a crowd as the 2,000 that was reportedly here. Just copping a bit of a disturbance with the camera there, Paul, but we'll just move away a bit from
That's
from
all right.
the crowd.
If we've got to cut away, we take it
We're
off.
just live on TV. Thank you, sir. So
Okay. Let's jump out, guys. Jump out, please. Leave Leith alone. Make sure that Leith is safe and they don't have the live shot that is happening there when I do have the chance to be able to talk. But obviously it's a live moment, and this is what I was talking about before when things were a lot more tense about whether or not you turn the lights on cameras like this. When we're able to get Leith in a nice and safe place, obviously we'll pick back up in a second. But that's why I wanted to talk to him as well, which is to get the understanding of what seemed to be a calmer situation, but again, just little silly moments make the night longer for everyone involved. But to Leith and our cameraman, I appreciate them being there, but still plenty of people, nowhere near the 2,000. We're now down into the hundreds now of people that still remain in the area. It's best for them, it's best for the police, it's best for the church if they go away and go away sooner rather than later, go home. Now, Leith is back now. Leith, I didn't want you to have to endure it live on telly of people jumping and pushing and all the rest of it. So we're back to you now in a slightly different place. So we've got you back here, mate. But again, just talk us what you can see. And again, my sense of watching the pictures was that the crowd is kept in a relatively static place. Are they staying there? I mean, what are they hoping to see? The bloke's already come out in the back of the paddy wagon. There's no more action there tonight.
yeah, you would think so, but there's still plenty here. I mean, I'd estimate it at a couple of hundred people on one side of the road, the police on the other, probably 20 to 30, 40 of those, the chopper above, which you can see and hear from time to time, plenty of flashing lights, plenty of onlookers too, I've got to be honest. The police have appealed that no one actually rock up and sticky beak, but there's plenty of that happening, as well as a few people, obviously, that we just saw before that don't like us, the media being present. But yeah, this is what we have, a bit of a standoff. I guess the police are hoping for a peaceful sort of ending and that everyone disperse and head off home, given that it's a Monday night and most has sort of quelled or calmed down. But here we have it, a standoff on a Monday night after a church mass. It really is quite remarkable.
Yeah, it is. After, of course, a massive emotional event, as well as a tragic event, of course, in Bondi, not just a couple of days ago. Look, I'll come back to you in a second, mate. We'll keep the pictures going. If you want to jump on at any time, please feel free. I don't want to cut you off, but I also don't want to leave you hanging there in front of people who may want to make a moment and get themselves onto telly as well. So again, thank you to Leith, thank you to the team for bringing us those live pictures. Again, some of those videos that have been around on social media, I've noticed that many of them have not made it through to the mainstream publications. One or two have started to make their way through, including one that we showed you not that long ago, which was what was happening inside the church after the stabbing had taken place. It's only a very brief, very short video for obvious reasons, either where that was posted or the chaos of the moment. If we can show that again, guys, about the congregation jumping up. There's other stills footage which has made its way via places like the Daily Telegraph, and they're showing that local parishioner, a woman, a follower of the bishop, is guarding his body and trying to keep him upright, making sure that the stab wound. Now she is tending to his face, but we understand that it was in the neck or the upper shoulder. We're seeing those images starting to come through. It's multiple parishioners that had been stabbed, as well as the bishop. We have seen that much of the messages we've been able to get across on the air, and I know local radio is doing so as well as the number one talk station in the country in 2GB, getting its message out again to people to disperse from the area has largely been the case. Now, this was not a peaceful night by many margins, apart from the actual incident itself. Pepper spray at one point in time had been deployed, and had been deployed upon the best part of 30 people who were pepper sprayed. We also understand that they needed some medical assistance. We also think that there was a police officer who may well have, if the wind blew the wrong way, had actually been affected by that as well. Police were able to create a human blockade to calm the area as soon as possible. Then the riot squad, the dog squad, they turn up as well. Then there's the flashpoint of people throwing things at the assembled police cars. We also understand that there was some hesitation upon members of the ambulance service when they turned up, not because they were unafraid to run towards danger, but because they couldn't necessarily see a straight path to being able to make their way into the church. Instead, of course, the throngs of people, they needed to negotiate their way through, of which they did. Now, the statement from the Premier of New South Wales will bring you up to date with that. Of course, he will no doubt be attending the scene, or certainly the area, most likely in the next 24 hours, but I would certainly be somebody to suggest that he's going to be there by this time tomorrow. He says, of course, disturbing scenes tonight in Wakeley. I've received a briefing from the Commissioner of Police and New South Wales Health on the situation. My thoughts and prayers are with the victims and first responders who are working to keep us safe. It's important that the community remain calm and continue to listen and act to the directions of police and emergency services. And perhaps the most important statement was the final one that he made, which was, we are a strong community in New South Wales. It is important we all stick together, particularly in the face of adversity. And the emotional toll on Sydney-siders is obvious after the events of what took place in Bondi. And now, for a subset of the Sydney community who are part of this church, the wider people of Western Sydney, who had watched on for the tragedy that had taken place in the east, feared the worst about what was to happen in the west. And Leith Mulligan's back on mic now to talk us through what he can see there on the corner of Box and Welcome.
Yeah, Paul, we've definitely got a decrease in the number of the crowd on this side of the road, the police on the other. They seem to be letting through a series of small groups, a bunch at a time, if you like, so that they can go back through onto Welcome Street or down near the church area in order to retrieve their vehicles. So it seems to be a tactic that's working and dispersing the crowd somewhat. But yeah, the crowd probably down to about 50 on this side of the road now, so it's certainly quietening down a bit now, but as we know, it's not yet over until it's over. But yeah, the police trickling crowds through so that they can walk through to the other side of the road in a controlled kind of manner. The police are certainly doing their best in such trying circumstances, that's for sure.
Yeah, look, I had thought that there was a reason people were being singled out. I had suggested, of course, that it may well end up being something connected to events earlier in the night, but it's good to see that, again, I mean, this was a street that had plenty of cars in it, getting ready for the service which took place this evening. Those cars, well, basically became impossible to move, and as we're starting to see those cars coming out of Welcome Street, that's good, and it's good to see certainly the mass reduction in the number of people that are in the area. Now, I don't know what happened with that sign when it was damaged, what it was damaged by, but obviously we saw that, and you're seeing plenty of people now starting to take their social media pictures for the very obvious reasons. We're not speculating in any direction whatsoever about where the person believed responsible for this crime is currently located, be it hospital or any other location. We won't be doing that because we want to make sure that the situation continues to taper off. We're making sure that that is tapering off and calming down as we speak, because it seems now like police have been able to get on top of the crowd when it was at its most difficult. They've now been able to move it into an orderly scenario, as slowly but surely moving through the number of people who need to, as Leith says, return their vehicle, or also maybe just want to finally start to pair off. It is amazing, Leith, isn't it, when we all know about how heavily trained every officer is in every state in the country, but to actually watch it in action, it is incredible that they're pulling a bit from this playbook and a bit from that playbook, but it has been, well, extremely successful after a trying start.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, it wasn't long before police in huge numbers were on scene. I mean, as we all know, this incident started unfolding at about 7 o'clock. The police pretty quick to react which has been great. Dog squad here earlier, pepper spray used earlier on. A couple of police officers, unfortunately, are reportedly injured and being treated, one for pepper spray, I'm led to believe. But yeah, they've done an enormous job. I mean, you got the events of Saturday fresh in people's minds, and obviously the minds of the police. They're human after all, dealing with such a circumstance only, 2 days later, a couple of days later. So it's quite remarkable, but a lot quieter now, thankfully, Paul. A crowd of 2,000 people, there'd only be, maybe 150 to 100 people left on this side of the road. Whether they are still hanging around as just trying to be a part of the show or not, I don't know, but whether they're still trying to get across to the other side to get their vehicles too, that may well be happening. So we'll wait to see if this crowd dies down any. Certainly copping a fair bit of abuse as people drive past and walk past, but
that's why we pay you the big bucks.
Kind of par for the course, isn't it?
You got the danger money, don't you, Lee? Thank you, mate. I do appreciate it. We'll return to you in a second here. I'm just reading from the reporting of the Daily Telegraph on their website right now, where they are showing that at the height of these things here, that a video at the height of this thing showed an angry mob which was smashing the windows of police cars and yelling as they tried to storm the church to get to the man who is under arrest. He's a effing dog, one man was heard yelling in the video. Despite the already massive angry mob, hundreds of more people continued to flood into the Wakeley and Fairfield area. One person told the Daily Telegraph there's still carloads of people arriving at the scene. Police had struggled to even get through. The roads are chaos. I've never seen anything like it. And as all of that was playing out, extra police were being brought in. So that's the reporting about some of the things that were being said as people were trying to, for want of a better term, get their hands on the situation and get their hands on the potential assailant. The Mayor of Fairfield, Frank Carboni, we had a chance to talk to him a bit earlier about the importance of the Bishop, the importance of this man in the community.
This is a very emotional situation. Obviously, the community is very upset. Emotionally, they're very distraught to have this happen to their bishop. A bishop in many of these communities is like their leaders. So they have a very strong connection to their faith and to their bishop. So please, if you have any footage, don't put it on social media. Provide it to the police. It's really important right now that we show some leadership and make sure that we're calm in Fairfield. And full well knowing that the police will do their job. We need to make sure that we don't let our emotions get the worst of us, which actually can happen sometimes. So I just urge everybody in the Fairfield community, I know that people are hurting. I understand that why too, but please, let's all be calm and say a prayer for the bishop. That's probably the best way that the bishop would want people to help him right now.
Evelyn Rae, my Sky News colleague, has been with us all evening to give us her insight as a former police officer in New South Wales about the operation. It's been an extraordinary night, and it has been, well, again, despite what some had tried to take it in one place, essentially, despite the odd fit of pique, it has essentially ended a lot calmer than some people had feared.
I think it's, another congratulations to the New South Wales Police. I mean, we can put aside, in the last few years, a lot of people are, criticising, saying that we shouldn't be praising the police because of how police handled COVID. But I mean, you objectively cannot argue the fact that they did incredible at Bondi and they did incredibly here again. The de-escalation has been almost flawless, and we only hope that it continues to go that way during the evening and that the crowds dissipate, they go home, that the offender is brought to justice swiftly and that the victims can recover very quickly and get back to their everyday lives.
Well, again, Evelyn, I do appreciate your insight. That has been phenomenal this evening. We look forward to, again, your expertise when needed, but certainly we'll see you again on the Sunday Showdown whenever you wish to pop up there, Sunday nights at 7 o'clock here on Sky News. All right, before I hand it over to the newsroom, this is what we know at the end of what has been an extraordinary night in Sydney and one that has been watched across the entire country. A stabbing took place in Western Sydney. Police were called just after 7:10. They were called to the church, the Christ the Good Shepherd Church, where, of course, they were called after a significant figure in that church, Bishop Murray Emmanuel, had actually been stabbed. Now, he'd been stabbed actually live on a YouTube feed of a service that was taking place in the church this Monday night. Now, the bishop was injured in the neck. He is in a non-life-threatening, stable situation. He will be okay, but he is in Liverpool Hospital as we speak. The person believed to be responsible, we have no information about age, background, motivation, whether this is a member of the regular community, had only turned up for the first time tonight, was from a different group of faith. We've held back on overusing the footage or the image, but this is the image of when the bishop was stabbed. Several other members of the congregation were also stabbed. We're talking about people in their 40s, 50s and 60s. Social media footage has been circulating for some time about the identity of the person responsible for the stabbing, but that person we will not be identifying at this moment. We will wait for further identification to come from police. That is the way that we choose to do things, and we prefer to do it right than to just simply blast what you can see, what we can all see on certain social media feeds. Then, of course, as you know, the rest of the day and the rest of the evening has rolled on from a scenario where the person believed responsible was inside the church. Inside the church, and up to 2,000 people wanted him to come out. They wanted to see him, and not in the kindest of fashions, but eventually police were able to divide the crowd, water it down, separate it, find a channel, and to be able to move the now suspect out of the area and onto another location. We stand by for even more information and more coverage on Newsnight. I'll see you again for Paul Murray Live tomorrow.